My name is Calla Rowan, 34 years old. The hospital smell, bleach and lemon and something metallic, settled in the back of my throat as Dylan pressed both palms to his stomach and whispered, "Mom, it hurts on the right." I'd been cutting the crusts off his turkey sandwich a minute earlier. Now I was steering through morning traffic with my hazard lights ticking like a metronome of panic. A triage nurse clocked the way Dylan winced when she palpated his side and moved us past the waiting room with quiet authority. The fluorescent lights hummed. Monitors blinked. I kept my voice level because 7-year-olds believe whatever expression you hand them. "Appendicitis," Dr. Bennett said after the scan, eyes kind over his mask. "We'll operate within 2 hours. It's routine, but we'll keep him for at least 2 nights to watch for infection." Routine. I nodded, like the word could anchor me. When they rolled Dylan to pre-op, I stepped into the hallway and called my mother. "Mom, Memorial Hospital, appendix. 2 hours. Can you and Dad come?" There was a small pause, the rustle of her calendar pages, even though she keeps everything on her phone. "Oh, honey, I have my standing hair appointment at 11, and your father was about to do the gutters. Text when it's over, okay? Appendectomies are common now." Her sympathy came out like a courtesy phrase at a checkout counter. I tried Vanessa next. Voicemail. "Hey, Ness, it's me. Dylan's having emergency surgery. If you can come by." I didn't finish the sentence because the gurney turned a corner and my son looked back at me with those wide, scared eyes, and I needed him to see something steady, not a mother holding back a tide. Nurse Janet found me in the family lounge, clutching a paper cup like it was an anchor. "You're not alone," she said, and I nearly laughed because I could hear the muffled roar of other families around us, grandparents unpacking puzzles, a dad opening juice boxes with practice flicks. But she meant something else. She brought coffee, real coffee, not the kind that tastes like warmed cardboard, and sat for 2 minutes while I explained nothing and everything. Waiting has a texture. Mine felt like the scratch of upholstery under palms, and the way my phone didn't light up with the names I needed. It lit up with work. Clients asking about quarterly projections, my assistant flagging an email from compliance. I answered the way I always do. Precise, helpful, dependable. That word has been braided into me since childhood like a ribbon you can't pull free. We grew up outside Chicago, my sister and I. Martha and Frank, 2 perfectly decent people who nonetheless built a tiny altar to Vanessa without realizing it. I was the steady one, quiet, A- student, didn't spill juice on the shag carpet, didn't ask for the pricier bike. Vanessa danced. In photos, she's mid-twirl, glitter on her eyelids, my parents' faces turned toward her like sunflowers. When Northwestern's acceptance envelope came, Mom stirred her coffee and said, "We always figured you'd get scholarships or go somewhere less expensive." 2 years later, Vanessa cycled through 3 campuses and at least as many majors. Tuition, apartments, the white slip-covered love seat she needed for a place she barely lived in. Covered. I worked nights at the grocery store, discovered that hands can smell like citrus even after you've washed them 4 times, and signed the student loan forms anyway. At 22, I counted 20s behind a bulletproof pane as a bank teller and learned how people talk about money when they're embarrassed. Promoted by 24. Married at 25 to Brian, who admired how sensible I was, until sensibility became the thing he couldn't stomach. Dylan was born with a heart murmur we monitor every 6 months, and a tendency to collect respiratory infections the way other kids collect rocks. Brian stuck to child support like it was an item on a chore chart and drifted to occasional holidays for everything else. I didn't narrate any of that to Dylan. You don't narrate absence to a child if you can help it. My parents called when they needed things. The refinance after a second mortgage went sideways because graduate school attempt number 2 for Vanessa needed a landing cushion. Closing costs, $5,000. There went the trip I promised Dylan to the Wisconsin Dells. Vanessa's credit card debt, $12,000. My mother's breathless plea about collection calls. She's crying every night, Calla. I built a payment plan and covered 4 months to help reset the habit. The joint emergency account I opened when Dad had a health scare, just in case, I told myself, feeding it with small deposits over years, because that's what reliable people do. Requests always arrived urgent and righteous. Thank yous arrived like confetti, bright for a second and then swept away. When I messaged about Dylan's honor roll or a persistent cough, the replies were thumbs up, or silence, or, "We'll tell Vanessa you said hi. She's busy with her influencer collab this week." The OR doors clicked open and the surgeon's shoulders were relaxed, the sign my body had been waiting for. "We removed the appendix before rupture," Dr. Bennett said. He did great. I texted my parents and Vanessa the news. Mom sent Dad wrote, "Great news. Tell the little guy we love him." Vanessa's text came an hour later. "Glad he's okay." Dylan looked impossibly small in recovery, wires like silver vines across his chest. When his eyelids fluttered, he reached for me without opening his eyes. "Mom?" "I'm here," I said, and meant it with every atom. "The doctor fixed your tummy. You were so brave." He blinked at the doorway. "Is Grandma here or Grandpa?" The question landed like a thrown stone. "Not right now," I said, keeping my voice soft. "They sent their love." "Tomorrow?" he asked, already drifting. "Maybe," I said, swallowing the answer I wanted to give. The first night I slept in the recliner and woke every time his pulse ox beeped. The Wi-Fi stuttered while I filed a client update from the hallway. I watched the door like it might conjure my family if I stared hard enough. Nurse Janet smuggled me a sandwich at midnight with a conspirator's wink. On day 2, Dylan requested his stuffed dinosaur and half a popsicle. I took a victory breath in a room that smelled like antiseptic and grape flavoring. By the time we were discharged on Friday, something in me had cooled from steam to steel. I buckled Dylan carefully, drove home in afternoon gold light, and cued his favorite movie. He fell asleep against my arm with a dinosaur wedged under his chin. "Mom," he asked later, very seriously, "are Grandma and Grandpa mad at me?" I told him the truth that wouldn't scar. "Nobody, they're just busy." He nodded like adults do when they don't believe what they're accepting. Saturday night, I cried for the first time, quiet so it wouldn't wake him, then made pancakes Sunday morning because that's what we do when we're fine. Batter, sizzle, flip. My phone chimed. "How is Dylan feeling?" Mom wrote, the first message she'd initiated all week. I sent back, "Much better, eating and moving more easily." Relief loosened something between my ribs. I ladled another pancake. The next message vibrated the spatula out of my hand. "Good to hear. Listen, we need to talk about something important. Vanessa is engaged. Tyler proposed last night. She needs $10,000 for her dream wedding dress. Vera Wang. Once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The boutique is holding it, but needs a deposit by tomorrow. Can you transfer today? Family helps family." I read it twice, then a third time because surely I was misunderstanding the choreography. Abandonment, followed by an invoice. Butter hissed and the pancake burned on one side, a crescent of black. Dylan swung his feet at the island, hopeful. "Is that Grandma?" "Yes," I said, and the lie scalded more than the pan. "She says hi." 3 more messages stacked like cards in a dealer's hand. From Mom. "Did you see my text about Vanessa's dress? They need an answer today." From Dad. "Your mother told you. It's non-negotiable. This is her special day." From Mom again. "Boutique closes at 5. You're the only one with money to spare. We wouldn't ask if it wasn't important." A wordless cold spread across my chest and kept going. Money to spare. The phrase tried to crawl inside my bones. I tucked Dylan's meds next to his plate, poured syrup, smiled like a functioning person, and set my phone face down so he wouldn't see my hands shake. When he settled on the rug with his Legos and a blanket cape, I picked up my phone again. It felt oddly heavy. I didn't answer. Not yet. Instead, I opened the banking app I've used since I was 22 and still smelled like citrus peels, and I stared at the tiles of my accounts. I told myself I was just checking balances after the hospital bills. That was true. It also wasn't the whole truth. My thumb hovered over a line I hadn't tapped in months. Emergency. Joint. The app spun. Numbers resolved. Transactions populated like a confession. And before any decision, before any speech or ledger or freeze order, my screen lit again with a photo of Vanessa in a cathedral train ball gown, beads flashing like 1,000 tiny eyes. "Thanks in advance," her text chirped. "Send your banking details to the boutique. Can't wait for you to see me walk down the aisle in this." The room went very quiet. The pancake in the pan smoked. Somewhere in the living room, Dylan whispered pew pew to himself, a Lego starfighter arcing through new air. I set the pan on a cool burner and picked up my phone for real. Good to hear, Mom typed, as if the previous week had been a clerical error. We need to talk. Vanessa is engaged. She needs $10,000 for her dream dress. Can you transfer today? My pulse clicked louder than the cooling metal. I stared at the words until they blurred, then sharpened into what they actually were, a boundary line I could no longer pretend not to see. The smell of burnt pancake lingered in the kitchen long after I opened the windows. Dylan was busy on the rug, narrating a space battle between Lego pilots while I sat at the table, phone in hand, scrolling through the messages that just kept coming. From Dad, your sister's dress is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Tyler's family expects a certain standard. Don't be difficult, Calla. From Mom, we know you make good money. Family helps family. And then, the last one, a photo of Vanessa in that shimmering gown. Smile like an advertisement. Thanks in advance. You're the best. Can't wait for you to see me walk down the aisle in this. No mention of Dylan. No. How's his pain? Or, how are you holding up after 3 nights in the hospital? Just the assumption that my bank account existed to fund other people's fantasies. I laid the phone flat on the table, breathing carefully through my nose. The wood grain blurred and sharpened, blurred again. My mind was doing math, not of numbers, but of patterns. Every favor, you're just better with money. Every time they'd called me reliable while quietly handing Vanessa their softness. For once, I didn't want to cry. I wanted clarity. I wiped my hands on a dish towel, pulled my laptop closer, and logged into my banking app. 2-factor authentication. Confirmation code. The small, methodical rituals of control. I clicked the folder marked Joint Emergency Fund. The balance looked familiar. $8,027. Not bad for a safety cushion. But when I opened the transaction history, my breath caught. Dozens of withdrawals. $300. Memo. Miscellaneous. $200. Memo. Van trip deposit. $600. Memo. Advance for V dress shopping. That one was dated last week, while Dylan was in surgery. I scrolled further. The account was supposed to be untouched unless my parents faced a genuine emergency. Medical, mortgage, something critical. I'd been adding small amounts every few months for years, just to feel like a good daughter. But now it was clear. They'd been dipping into it freely, silently, like it was family property. Something cold unfurled in my stomach. My phone buzzed again. Dad calling. I pressed accept. Dad? Finally, he said, exhaling like I'd been the one avoiding him. We need to get this payment in before noon tomorrow. The boutique won't hold the dress. I can't give $10,000 for a dress, I said quietly. He sighed. Calla, you work in finance. You have money. Don't start acting selfish. Selfish? I repeated, my voice cracking. Dylan just had emergency surgery. I missed work. The medical bills. Appendicitis is routine, he cut in. You're blowing it out of proportion. This is about your sister's future. You've always been lucky with money. Vanessa's never had your stability. Because she's never had to earn it, I snapped. You've all made sure of that. There was a long pause. Then his tone dropped an octave. Low, sharp. If you're going to talk like that, maybe you should remember who raised you. We've done plenty for you over the years. Like what? The words came out before I could stop them. Because from where I'm sitting, it's been me covering everyone else's emergencies, including the ones you made up. Watch your mouth, Calla, he hissed. This attitude, this bitterness, it's exactly why no one likes asking you for help. The line went dead. For a few moments, the only sound in the room was Dylan humming to himself, the soft clatter of Lego bricks. Then I opened my contacts and tapped Robert, bank branch manager. He picked up on the second ring. Calla, how's Dylan? I heard he had surgery. At least someone noticed, I muttered. Then, steadying my tone, Robert, I need your help. I'm finding unauthorized withdrawals from the joint account I share with my parents. He was quiet for a moment. Tell me what's going on. I explained everything. How the account began as a safety fund years ago, how the small withdrawals had multiplied, and how my family was now demanding $10,000 for my sister's wedding dress. Robert sighed. Unfortunately, this isn't rare. Family boundaries and money. Dangerous mix. But you can fix this. Let's start by freezing that joint account so no further withdrawals happen without your consent. We spent the next 40 minutes going step by step. Step 1. Freeze the joint account. Any new transaction would require my in-person authorization. Step 2. Transfer the remaining balance to a new account solely in my name, except for $100 I intentionally left behind. Step 3. Create a new educational trust for Dylan, completely sealed off, with the bank's strictest security measures. Only he could access it one day, and only for education. Step 4. Document everything. Every transfer, every text, every transaction. When we were done, Robert hesitated. Calla, just a heads up, he said. If your parents find out the account's frozen, they might try to escalate. Maybe even claim you're acting irrationally. It happens more often than you'd think. I let out a bitter laugh. You mean they'll move from taking my money to attacking my sanity? Sounds about right. He paused. You're doing the right thing, even if it gets ugly. Boundaries rarely come with applause. After the call, I stared at the cursor blinking on my screen. The account title changed. Status? Frozen. For the first time in years, that word, frozen, felt like peace. Then I did something impulsive but deliberate. I opened a new transfer window, selected Vanessa's name, and entered the amount, $100. In the memo line, I typed, Buy a veil. This is all you get after abandoning Dylan. Click, confirm, transaction complete. It was the most satisfying single dollar I'd ever spent. Afterward, I sat there for a long time, fingers pressed to my temple, breathing through the aftershocks. This wasn't just about money. It was about reclaiming narrative control. For years, they'd painted me as the uptight one, the ungrateful one, the daughter who never relaxes. Now I was done playing that role. I opened my email and drafted a message to myself. Subject line, family financial record. Attach screenshots of every transfer and every message, creating a private archive in case I needed evidence later. By the time Dylan padded into the kitchen, rubbing his eyes, the light outside had softened into gold. Mom, what are you doing? Just some work, sweetheart, he yawned. You look mad. I smiled gently. Not mad, buddy. Just done. I closed the laptop, poured him a glass of milk, and joined him on the couch. His head rested against my arm as the cartoons flickered. But even as I watched the colors dance on the TV, my mind was elsewhere, waiting for the storm I knew would come once they realized what I'd done. It didn't take long. The next morning, my phone exploded. 6 missed calls from Mom, 4 from Dad, 12 text messages from Vanessa. One voicemail after another. Calla, what is this $1? Is this a joke? You're humiliating your sister. We raised you better than this. Then Vanessa's voice, sweet but trembling with rage. Hey, sis, there must be some mistake with the transfer. Maybe you typed the wrong amount? Please fix it, okay? 10 minutes later, you've always been jealous of me. Don't ruin this, Calla. I silenced my phone, set it face down on the counter, and watched the notification light blink like a warning beacon. Then a final message from Dad. Your mother and I are coming to the bank today. We'll get this sorted. I felt it then. The pivot from begging to control. The shift I'd seen before in clients describing financial abuse, now playing out in my own life. I rinsed Dylan's breakfast plate, hands steady. My phone buzzed again, but I didn't check it. I'd already set the next moves in motion. When the storm came, I wouldn't be begging for shelter this time. I'd be standing in the middle of it, ready. By Monday morning, the storm had arrived in full. I'd just dropped Dylan off at school, his first full day back since the surgery, when my phone began vibrating like a wasp trapped in a jar. Calls, voicemails, texts. Mom, Dad, Vanessa, again and again. At 8:14 a.m., the first voicemail. Mom's voice was shrill and trembling. Calla Rowan, what on earth is the meaning of this? You froze the emergency account. The teller said we can't withdraw our own money. You have lost your mind. Vanessa's boutique is demanding the deposit by noon. Fix this immediately. The next one was worse. Dad, furious but rehearsed. I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but this behavior is unacceptable. This isn't how family treats family. We've supported you your whole life, and now you're being vindictive over a simple request? Call me back, now. And then Vanessa, Please tell me this is a joke. I showed Tyler your $1 transfer, and he laughed because he thinks you're kidding. You are kidding, right? Because if not, I swear. I deleted the rest. At 9 a.m., I walked into my office at the firm and was barely halfway through my first email when Lauren, my assistant, peeked in. Calla, there's a very upset woman in the lobby asking for you. Says she's your mother. I closed my laptop. Send her in. And Lauren? Yeah? No interruptions, no matter what you hear. She hesitated but nodded. You got it. The door opened before I could stand. My mother swept in like a thundercloud wearing pearls. Her face was blotchy, eyes red, lipstick smeared slightly at one corner, a detail that, despite everything, made me want to hand her a tissue. What have you done? She hissed, slamming her purse onto the edge of my desk. Your father tried to withdraw the money this morning, and the teller said it's frozen. Then we found out you emptied the account. How dare you? I gestured for her to sit, but she stayed standing, shaking. Mom, that account was mine. It was meant for emergencies, real ones, not for a wedding dress. This is an emergency, she snapped. Do you understand what kind of embarrassment Vanessa is facing? The boutique will release that gown, and Tyler's parents. It will survive, I cut in. Mom, Dylan was in the hospital less than a week ago, alone. Not one of you came. Her chin wobbled, but she recovered quickly. We sent our love. A text message isn't love. I met her eyes. Being there is love. Sitting next to me when I'm scared out of my mind while my son is wheeled into surgery. That's love. Don't guilt trip me, Calla. Hospitals are depressing, and your father's back has been acting up. You know he can't drive long distances. It's a 20-minute drive, I said flatly. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. Her eyes darted around my office. The framed certificates, the small plant by the window, the photo of Dylan holding a paper rocket ship. You've changed, she said finally, voice softening. You used to understand that family is everything. No, I said. I used to believe that I had to be everything. The fixer, the provider, the responsible one. But that belief's over. She stiffened. You've always been jealous of your sister's special moments. This is no different. Jealous? I laughed under my breath. Mom, I've paid your mortgage penalties, your medical bills, Vanessa's debt, over $50,000 in the last 10 years. I've been your safety net. And now because I said no once, I'm the villain? She crossed her arms, trembling. If you don't fix this right now, you can consider yourself out of this family. The words hung there like a dare. I looked at her, really looked. For years, I'd chased that impossible approval, twisting myself to stay inside her definition of family. But at that moment, I realized something. She wasn't issuing a threat. She was revealing the price of belonging. Then I guess I'm out, I said quietly. She blinked, stunned. Excuse me? Because if financial obedience is the cost of being a daughter, I can't afford it anymore. Her mouth opened, then closed. You'll regret this, she spat, grabbing her purse. You've broken your father's heart. She stormed out, heels echoing down the hallway. Lauren popped her head in 5 minutes later, wide-eyed. Everything okay? She was loud. I forced a shaky smile. Family drama. Nothing that'll reach HR, I hope. Lauren smirked nervously. I'll pretend I didn't hear her threaten to disown you. Appreciated. But the reprieve didn't last long. At 11:30, my phone rang again. It was Robert, the bank manager. Calla, I just had a visit from your parents, he said, sounding apologetic. They were insistent. I shut my office door. What did they say? They tried to override the freeze, claimed the funds were theirs too, that you're not thinking clearly. They even attempted to file a fraud report, said you were suffering from mental health issues and acting erratically. I sat down, the room tilting for a second. They what? I explained to them you're the primary account holder and that their claims had no basis. Still, they hinted they might contact your firm to discuss your condition. I wanted you to be prepared. My stomach tightened. Thank you for calling, Robert. Hang in there, he said softly. You're doing the right thing, even if it feels awful. After hanging up, I stared at my reflection in the dark computer screen. My mother had weaponized guilt before, but this, attacking my sanity, my credibility, this was war. I stood, squared my shoulders, and walked straight to my supervisor's office. Nancy looked up from her computer as I knocked. Calla, everything okay? I need to tell you something before someone else does. I explained everything. the frozen account, my family's history of financial dependence, and their current attempt to portray me as unstable. She listened without interruption, brow furrowed in disbelief. When I finished, she said, "Good Lord, Calla, I had no idea you were dealing with this kind of pressure. If they call, I'll document everything. You've been one of our most consistent performers for years. And if you need a few days off, say the word." Relief bloomed in my chest. For once, someone believed me without me having to prove my sanity first. By the end of the day, I learned my parents had attempted 3 more withdrawals, all declined. Vanessa's texts went from pleading to venomous. "You're ruining everything." Tyler's furious. "You've always hated me." I muted the conversation. At 6:45 p.m., just as I was helping Dylan with his reading homework, my phone rang again. Dad. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Calla," he said, voice cold as stone. "We're having a family meeting tonight, 7 o'clock, our house." "I can't, Dad. Dylan's still recovering. I don't want to leave him with a sitter." "Then bring him. This needs to be resolved." "Is this about the dress?" "This is about you and your behavior. You've made accusations and caused chaos in this family. We're going to settle it face to face." The line went dead. I stood in the kitchen for a moment, the clock ticking above the fridge. This wasn't a meeting. It was an ambush. But I'd spent my life avoiding confrontation, hoping silence would keep peace. It never did. Tonight, I wouldn't go unprepared. I pulled a folder from my briefcase and began printing. Every transaction, every message, every receipt of the $53,000 I'd poured into my family over the years. I slipped everything into labeled sleeves and added a final sheet. Unauthorized withdrawals. Emergency account. 2024-2025. At 6:20, I called my neighbor, Miss Jenkins, the retired teacher who sometimes watched Dylan when I worked late. "Of course I can take him, dear," she said immediately. "He and I still have that cookie recipe to test. Go handle what you need to." "Thank you," I said, my throat tight. "If I'm not back by 9, and then I'll keep him till morning and make pancakes," she interrupted kindly. "You do what you have to." By the time I pulled into my parents' driveway, the sky was deep indigo. The same house I'd grown up in. Split level, white shutters, the porch light flickering, looked smaller than I remembered. 3 cars were already there. Dad's truck, Vanessa's sedan, and an unfamiliar black SUV. Tyler's, I assumed. The living room lights glowed through the curtains like a stage set waiting for its actors. I parked, took a steadying breath, and reached for the folder on the passenger seat. My hands didn't shake this time. Inside the house, voices were low but tense. Mom appeared at the doorway, eyes red, expression rigid. Without a word, she turned and walked back toward the living room. Dad sat in his recliner, the throne. Vanessa and Tyler were on the couch, both stiff, both watching me. A single dining chair had been placed opposite them, deliberately out of place. "The hot seat. Sit down," Dad said. I stayed standing. Before anyone could start, I opened the folder and placed it on the coffee table. The papers made a satisfying slap. "Before we begin," I said evenly, "let me be clear. I'm here to discuss years of financial and emotional exploitation. I'm not here to be guilted or bullied into funding another crisis, especially not one involving a wedding dress." Vanessa scoffed, but I didn't look at her. "For once," I said, "we're going to put everything on the table." Dad's jaw tightened. Mom's hands knotted in her lap. Tyler looked confused. And me? For the first time in years, I felt like I wasn't the one on trial. The room felt staged, like a courtroom designed by people who didn't realize they were the defendants. My father in his recliner, jury and judge combined. My mother beside him, back straight, arms crossed like a guardrail between her daughters. Vanessa on the couch, posture dripping defiance, and Tyler, her fiancé, sitting uneasily beside her, his expression flickering between confusion and discomfort. "Sit down," my father repeated. I shook my head. "No, I've spent my entire life sitting down while the rest of you decided what was right. I'll stand." Mom sighed. "Don't be dramatic, Calla. This isn't a performance." "Then stop treating it like one." I slid the folder open and spread the documents across the coffee table. The sound of paper on wood filled the silence like a gavel. "These are bank statements, transfer records, and receipts," I said. "They show over $53,000 of financial help I've given this family in the past decade, mortgage penalties, medical bills, tuition for a degree Vanessa never finished, credit card debts, every cent accounted for." Dad frowned. "What's the point of dragging all this up? Family doesn't keep score." I looked at him steadily. "Funny. You only say that when you're the one who owes something. Vanessa rolled her eyes. Oh, here we go. The martyr speech. No, I said, turning to her. This is the reality speech. Because while you were figuring yourself out, I was covering your mistakes. While you were planning your third major, I was signing loan documents. And last week, when my son was in emergency surgery, none of you even showed up. 3 days later, you asked me for $10,000 for your wedding dress. Tyler's head snapped toward her. Wait, 10,000? Vanessa's shoulders stiffened. It's not as bad as it sounds. Not as bad? He echoed. You told me the dress cost 2,000. Her voice rose. I said that because I knew you'd freak out. I wanted something special. It's my wedding, Tyler. You of all people should understand. Understand what? He interrupted. That your family funds your choices behind your fiancé's back? The silence after that was thick enough to touch. My mother jumped in, voice sharp. Tyler, this is not relevant. It's very relevant, I said, my voice calm but cold. You and Dad have been using the joint emergency fund I created to pay for Vanessa's wedding, without telling me. Tyler turned to my parents. Is that true? Dad opened his mouth, but Mom spoke first. Calla's exaggerating. That account was always meant for family needs. Family needs, I repeated. Not indulgences, not designer gowns. That fund was supposed to be for medical emergencies or genuine crises. You drained and shaved nearly $4,000 from it over the last year without a single word to me, including $600 labeled V dress shopping. Tyler leaned back, staring at Vanessa. So the money wasn't yours. Tyler, stop, she snapped. This isn't your business. The hell it's not, he muttered, jaw tightening. Dad leaned forward, palms on his knees. Enough. We didn't come here to let you humiliate your sister or undermine this family. You're the one who turned a private issue into a vendetta. You froze the account, embarrassed us at the bank, and sent your sister $1. What kind of person does that? The kind of person who's done being used. I reached into the folder again and pulled out the final sheet, a printed copy of the transaction record with highlighted withdrawals. I slid it across the table toward him. You see this? It's proof. You took what wasn't yours. And then, when I tried to stop it, you tried to paint me as mentally unstable to my bank manager. Dad's jaw clenched. He told you that? Yes, he called me directly. Mom's face blanched. We only said you were stressed. You said I was irrational, I corrected. You tried to destroy my credibility because you couldn't control my money anymore. Vanessa stood, pointing a shaking finger at me. You're twisting everything. You've always been jealous of me ever since we were kids. Admit it, you can't stand that Mom and Dad love me more. The words hit the room like a grenade. For a second, no one moved. Tyler turned slowly toward her, disbelief spreading across his face. Did you just say that? Her lips parted, realizing too late what she'd confessed. I didn't mean... But the damage was done. Mom's mouth fell open. Dad shifted uncomfortably, eyes darting between us. Vanessa, that's not true, he muttered weakly. Yes, it is, I said quietly. You've all known it for years. I just stopped pretending it didn't matter. Tyler looked at me, then at my parents. So let me get this straight. You've been leaning on Calla financially for years, didn't show up for her kid's surgery, and then turned on her when she stopped paying for everything? Mom bristled. You don't understand family loyalty. No, Tyler said flatly. I understand manipulation. My father's voice dropped low and dangerous. Calla, you're destroying this family with your accusations. Do you have any idea what this is doing to your mother? She's crying because she lost control, I said, not because she lost me. He rose halfway out of his recliner, pointing at me. You listen here. No, you listen. My voice didn't rise, but it cut through the room like glass. Family means showing up when it counts. It means care that flows both ways, not just from one direction. I have carried this family's weight for 10 years, financially, emotionally, silently, and it ends today. I gathered the papers back into the folder. I'm not cutting contact, I'm setting terms. You want a relationship with me and Dylan? Great, but it has to be built on respect, not transactions. No more handouts, no more guilt trips, no more pretending I don't see what you're doing. Mom covered her mouth, whispering, How can you say these things? Because they're true, I said softly, and because I'm tired of lying for the sake of keeping peace. I turned to Tyler, meeting his stunned gaze. I'm sorry you had to hear all this tonight, but maybe it's better you did now instead of later. He nodded slowly. Honestly, thank you. I wish it hadn't come out like this, but I'm glad I know. Vanessa's face flushed crimson. Tyler, don't you dare take her side. I'm taking reality's side, he said quietly. I closed the folder, clutching it to my chest. The emergency account will stay frozen until there's trust again. My priority is Dylan's well-being. If that means you call me selfish, fine. I'll live with it. I'm teaching my son that love without respect isn't love at all." The room was silent except for the faint ticking of the wall clock. Finally, Tyler spoke again. "Calla, for what it's worth, I think you're right." I gave a small nod. "Thank you." Then I turned toward the door. "Don't bother coming to Sunday dinner," Mom called after me, voice trembling. I stopped in the doorway, glanced back over my shoulder. "I won't." The night air outside was cold and clean, the kind that clears everything heavy from your lungs. As I walked to my car, I saw my reflection in the driver's side window. Tired, yes, but free. My phone buzzed once in my pocket. "Unknown number." The screen lit for a few seconds, then went dark. I didn't check it, not yet. Because for the first time in years, I didn't need to answer to anyone. 2 months have passed since that night in my parents' living room, but sometimes I still hear the echo of that wall clock, the slow, uneven tick that filled the silence after I walked out. Back then, I thought the confrontation would leave me shattered. Instead, it felt like stepping into sunlight after years underground. For weeks after, my phone stayed quiet. No texts, no calls, not even the usual family group chat reminders about birthdays or holidays. At first, the silence was unnerving. Then it became a kind of peace I didn't know I'd been starving for. In that stillness, life began to take shape again. Dylan healed quickly. His appetite returned, and so did his questions. Endless, curious, bright. The scar on his belly faded into a thin, silver line, a reminder of what we'd both survived. He asked about Grandma and Grandpa less often, though sometimes when he passed the phone buzzing with unknown numbers, I saw the flicker of hope. I always told him, when people are ready to show up for real, we'll know. In the meantime, we built something new. I started therapy with Dr. Morgan, a calm woman with eyes that didn't flinch when I spoke about guilt. In her softly lit office, surrounded by shelves of books and the faint scent of eucalyptus, I learned words I hadn't used in my family before. Boundaries, roles, accountability. "You were assigned the role of fixer," she explained one afternoon, tapping her pen lightly against her notebook. "And your sister, the role of dependent. When you stepped out of your role, the system panicked. That's why they lashed out." "So it's my fault for changing the script," I said bitterly. "Not your fault," she corrected, "but you disrupted a pattern. People built comfort around your compliance. When you stopped performing it, they had to face themselves." That sentence stayed with me for days. At work, I felt lighter, no longer checking my phone in dread, waiting for the next urgent crisis. I began putting the money that once disappeared into family requests toward things that actually mattered. Dylan's college fund, our mortgage, small joys. I replaced our fraying couch, fixed the leaking faucet, signed up Dylan for a robotics club he'd been begging to join. Every choice felt like reclaiming a piece of air I hadn't realized was missing. And yet even freedom comes with echoes. About 6 weeks after the confrontation, a letter arrived. Real stationery, not a text or email. The handwriting on the envelope stopped me cold. "Vanessa." I sat on the back porch with a cup of tea before opening it, bracing myself for whatever tone she'd chosen, accusation, guilt, or both. But the letter surprised me. "Dear Calla, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I need to say this. Tyler and I have postponed our wedding." He asked a lot of questions after that night. Questions I didn't have good answers for. I realize now I've been selfish, maybe spoiled, maybe both. I didn't mean to ignore Dylan's surgery. I honestly didn't even know how bad it was until you said it in front of everyone. That's not an excuse, but it's the truth. I can't change what happened, but I'm thinking about how to be a better sister, maybe even a better person. I'm not asking for anything, just wanted to open the door a little if you ever want to talk. It wasn't a perfect apology, but it was something real. I sat with the letter in my lap for a long time before writing back. "Vanessa, I appreciate your letter. I hope you and Tyler can build your life on honesty and balance. It's the only foundation that lasts. Dylan and I are doing well. I'm not ready for deep talks yet, but I'm glad you reached out. Maybe someday." No anger, no warmth either, just truth. A week later, another envelope arrived, this time from my parents. Inside was a birthday card for Dylan, with a small gift card to a toy store and a note in my mother's looping script. "We'd like to take Dylan out for ice cream sometime if that's okay. Love, Mom and Dad." No demands, no guilt trips. For the first time, a request that was simply human. When I showed Dylan the card, his eyes lit up. "Can I see Grandma and Grandpa?" he asked. "Maybe," I said, choosing my words carefully. We'll take it slow, just ice cream for now. He nodded, satisfied. Okay, but can I get sprinkles? That night, I wrote in my journal something Dr. Morgan once told me. You can rebuild connection, but only if it's safe to do so. Boundaries aren't walls, they're doors with locks. You decide who gets the key. I wasn't ready to hand my parents the key yet, but I was willing to open the door a crack. Life filled the empty spaces family drama used to occupy. Miss Jenkins, my neighbor, had unofficially become Dylan's favorite person. They gardened together, baked cookies, and argued playfully about whether cats or dogs were superior. She'd once told me, you know, dear, sometimes the family you build later is the one that truly counts. Work thrived too. My supervisor, Nancy, nominated me for a leadership program I'd been too self-conscious to apply for before. It's about time you put that backbone to use professionally, she said with a grin. But the moment that anchored everything came one quiet night while tucking Dylan into bed. He was holding his favorite action figure, tiny, plastic, a superhero with a chipped mask. Mom, he asked, is it bad not to give someone something even if they really want it? I hesitated. Why do you ask, sweetheart? Joey at school wanted me to give him this toy, he said, holding it up. He said, best friends share everything. But I didn't want to. I said he could play with it at recess, but I wanted to keep it. Was that mean? I smiled, brushing his hair from his forehead. That was perfect. Sharing isn't giving away everything you love. Real friends don't make you feel bad for saying no. He nodded solemnly. I thought so. Joey got mad at first, but then we built a Lego spaceship together, and it was fine. I kissed his forehead. You handled that better than most adults. As I turned off the light, he mumbled drowsily, You're my superhero, Mom. My throat tightened. And you're mine. Downstairs, I opened my laptop and looked at Dylan's college fund. The numbers on the screen glowed softly, more than I'd ever saved before. The same money that could have gone toward a Vera Wang dress was now quietly compounding interest for my son's future. I clicked transfer funds and moved another deposit. The confirmation window flashed. Success. Outside, the night wind rustled the trees, and somewhere down the street, a neighbor's porch light flicked on. The world kept turning. I realized then that peace isn't dramatic. It's quiet. It's pancakes on a Sunday morning that don't burn because you're not answering a text mid-flip. It's your son laughing in the next room, knowing love doesn't have a price tag. Maybe someday I'll sit across from my family again. Coffee instead of confrontation. Small talk instead of accusations. Maybe they'll have changed. Maybe I have too. But for now, my life is full enough. Boundaries, I've learned, are not barriers to love. They're the shape that makes love real. And for the first time in my life, mine are firmly in place.